Hello, friends, and welcome. I'm Natalie Dawn Hansen, bringing you another edition to my video series called A Neighbor's Reality, how we are all kind of coping with the reality of living under the mandates of the coronavirus and dealing with distant learning and social distancing and isolation. And today I am so excited to have this guest, Cindy Mao, who is currently a school counselor for my school district in Elbow Lake, Minnesota. And so I am just so excited to get her feedback on how our kids are doing, how our families are coping. And I know that she will be able to give us some really great insight and encouragement moving forward. So we are just going to start the conversation. Cindy, welcome so much. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. We'll have a good time.
We will. And for us, those recording today happens to be the last day of school for our district. And so I know many families are under that sort of place right now where they've gone for weeks and weeks and weeks of of distant learning. And now we are done and summer's upon us. So we'll talk about what that all looks like. But before we get into that, could you just explain or introduce yourself to the guests, to those watching today?
Sure. Again, my name is Cindy Mao. I have been in education for a long time, but that also tells you that I really chose the right profession. I'm convinced of it. So it's been great. I've served in lots of roles. Mostly, I have worked in North Dakota schools for many years in lots of capacities. I've taught college, I've opened my own preschool, I've been in counseling, I've had some years of administration. Loved every one of my jobs, so I must be in the right spot. I have 4 children of my own. One of our children we adopted from foster care, so that was a book waiting to happen. And now we have 8 grandchildren, 7 who live in Alexandria with us and 1 in Colorado. So I can't complain at all.
Wow. And you are certainly a wealth of knowledge, knowing that you have all of these years' experiences dealing with kids at very different places and levels. And so before we get into that, could you just explain to me, from your perspective, what life was like before any of this started? What was just a typical day for you working with kids and how you'd interact? What was normal?
Sure. Well, I'm serving this year, serving the high school, the 5th and 6th grade, when there's about, I suppose, 150 there, and then North Elementary and South Elementary. So it's, 3 schools, 5 days, and 1 of me. So I think I had a little over 420. So it was a little bit overwhelming some days. I try to spend a lot of times in the classroom talking with kids about personality styles. My root philosophy for all of the kids is that every child has a gift. Every child has a gift. What is your gift to give back? Because in our society, we've gotten so egocentric. All we talk about is what I want, what I need, what's best for me. And I'm not convinced anyone will be happy focused internally. We have to learn to give out before we're happy. So I'm in the classroom a lot doing sessions with kids. 5th and 6th, I always have a topic, but my goal is to engage so they'll talk with me. And that's a wonderful age, but a traumatic age these days. I also do some individual time. School counselors do not do family therapy, so I'm not getting involved in intense family things, but in fact, helping every child be their optimum best. And so it's a great profession. I mean, counseling is probably my favorite because we're all here for a reason and we all have a gift to give.
I love that. And I know too, just by knowing a little bit about who you are, that you're sharing that the key is relationship and communication is how we really start to connect with our kids. Right? I think it first starts with relationship in order to get them to communicate and talk and share their feelings, which I think we know now is going to be even more important considering the situation that we're in, is to try to open up those lines of communication. Okay, so that we will get into again, but that's where you were. Now, how have things changed for you? We know that we've all kind of gone to this distant learning. And for you as a counselor, you sent home, just for my kids, amazing resources for us to kind of look at and follow. So what's it been like for you? All of a sudden, all the kids are gone. You don't have that face-to-face connection with them. How's that been for you?
Well, heart to heart, it's been difficult because teachers and counselors are people persons. And so we want to be with the kids. We want to see the kids. We want to see their faces. So to be honest, it's been difficult, and it's been sometimes discouraging, and you don't feel like you're enough, even though you're gifted in what you can do.
Right.
Learning how to give to people through distance learning is a whole different ballgame. And I did share the other day with a colleague, just when I'm figuring out what I could and should do, school's out. So the good of that is we will all be better. And I know the teacher sites, a lot of teachers are saying, now that I'm getting the hang of this, we're going to spend the summer learning how to get better depending on where all this goes. And so how do we reach out to people? How do we, I've called kids and talked with them online. I can email the older kids, and that's been helpful to them and to me. It's hard because our feelings aren't about paper always. It's that heart to heart. And as I've spoken to kids on Google Classroom, it seems like parents want to talk too, because we're all just filled with feelings and frustrations, and we don't know what to make of things either. So it's truly a challenging time.
It is for all of us, moms, students, teachers, counselors, everyone involved. And I am a firm believer that I really do believe most people are trying to do their best, right, to get through this time. But even despite that, we are all still feeling some anxieties and worries, and our kids are as well. Have you noticed, based on the connection that you've had with some kids, and maybe even seeing your grandkids experience this? So I have kids in elementary all the way up through high school. So elementary, middle school, and high school. Have you noticed some trends with social emotional conditions for each of them and how they are overall handling it? Or is it more based on a kind of a family by family, person to person basis? Is there any trend that you're seeing in ages at all?
Boy, that's $1 million question. I can tell you one, and I've seen this long before we got to this spot. Kids in rural Minnesota, the thing that I'm so encouraged about is they know how to get outside and play. And so that isn't a therapeutic thing, but I'll tell you, being outside in nature is one of the best things we can have our kids do. Go outside and play, look, explore, listen to the birds, etc. And so many of our kids in the schools have pets. And that's another really, really valuable thing for kids if you're in the right spot and you can have a pet that's comforting to kids.
Wow.
So to say that there's an overall trend, I'm not positive. I will say that most children have a tendency to mirror what they see in their families. If families are really stressed and really anxious, and there's lots of anxiety about, we might get sick, be careful, don't touch, don't talk. Oh, look what the news said. Oh, if we focus on that, that probably isn't the best for our kids. Our kids really want to feel empowered and know how to keep themselves safe. And so if kids are worried about their parents going to the grocery store or they're highly anxious, we really need to reassure our kids we are healthy. We're doing what people are asking us to do. We're staying in our family. So reassurance for kids is pretty big right now. How we handle life is how our kids handle life, and they feel and sense our anxiety. So it is important that we get our feelings talked out so we don't instill that in our children.
Oh, that is so good. In fact, in my book that I wrote, Made to Soar, I talk about how we control the narrative and the story that our kids are, we help dictate how they see the world, how they see events, how they see this pandemic. And whether it is one of extreme fear or one of, this is just where we are today, and there's certain things we can control and certain things we can't. And I think you hit the nail on the head that we do have power to impact how our kids are going to respond in this time, based on our conversations with them, based on how we are handling our own fears and our own worries and our own anxieties. And so much of what I've been doing since isolation has done is to try to just breathe in to moms and any dads who want to listen, to fill them with encouragement. And you and I are both faith-based people. And so I have just been pouring in wisdom from God's word to help build up this core foundation of faith in our families to help us get through this time. And so that has been just a lifesaver, truly a game changer for me and my family when it comes to being able to get through this time. But that being said, school's done, summer is on the horizon, and my kids still have yet to, they've seen a friend maybe from a distance, but we have still yet to play with friends. I have joked with some people that have asked, how are your kids getting along? And I've said, I think they realize that all they have right now is one another. So for the most part, they've been getting along, but I have noticed quiet aches, especially in my older ones, of just this deep desire to see their people. And so do you have suggestions for as parents, as we, there are some places that are starting to open a little bit. We see North Dakota opening up some mandates, allowing for a few more people to get together. As we start moving through summer, what are ways do you think that we can help our kids feel like they are still connected? Do you have any suggestions?
Well, it is the one thing kids kindergarten through the grades I'm working with say, and I'm sure it's K-12. It's all of us really. I feel isolated. I don't have anyone to talk to because kids at a certain age begin to shy away from opening up to parents. They want to see their friends. It's a big deal. If families are comfortable, one of the best things to do is just sit down as a family and do a check-in. How are you doing? Let's have a family meeting. A little bit of routine, a little bit of check-in. It's a whole new time for families. So my advice to anybody is take this time and talk to your kids in a different way. Look at your children. Put all your devices down, because we have to be careful we're not glued to our phones and we're glued to the TV. And put them down. Look at your kids in the eyes. Listen to them. What are they saying to you? Each child, by their makeup, is handling this differently. So you have to take your cues from each child. But if you have this time, as a parent, stop and think, what can I do to make this optimal for my family? I may never get this time again. So now it's summer, and you've already said go out and play. So can the kids still Zoom? Can the kids talk? There are lots of kids fighting with their siblings, a lot more than normal. And when they're discouraged about that, I tell them that's pretty normal, because people are getting agitated. They're rubbing each other the wrong way. There is tension in families, and I want all families to know that's okay. It's normal, and we should be telling our kids. But then what do we do to talk through that? This is a way to build relationships for life. How do we put the other one first? What's causing us to be so upset and angry? It's because we can't control anything.
So true. Here's one, I'm going to ask you this question, but I'm going to answer it first, just based on my experience with my own family. My question I want to ask you is, what are some of the surprise blessings you've seen in the midst of this isolation and families being kind of forced to stay home with one another? And I will without a doubt say that for my family, apart from just having more time together, but having more time together is not always the best thing, right? We all need our own space. But what I found is that I am noticing more conversations than we would have ever had time for. I'm talking, like you said, the deeper conversations about life, about conflict management, about critical thinking, all of these conversations that we maybe are too busy to stop and really hammer out. And we've had a lot more of those conversations, which I'm hoping is well, I know is going to be part of their makeup, right? These are going to be core memories that they have from this time. And so I think it's so critical for us to be as intentional as we can in this time. And I also liked how you said to be listening to them. And that tells me it's like be in the present moment as much as you can when their needs arise, so that we can just verbally really work through it. So for you to answer that question, what are some of the blessings you've seen during this time of isolation? Well, the good things that have come.
Yeah, it's not without growing pains for some personalities to have to slow down. If you're a go-getter all the time, got to move, got to plan, sometimes not having all those extra distractions, it can be challenging for people. But the blessing side of that is it does force us to say, who really are you at the core? Why are you here? What's your purpose? What are you here to give? And so I think we should transfer that to our kids is, what gifts do you have to give to others? Not so much what you want to do in quarantine, but stop for a minute and think about what you could do for others. Because now's our chance to say, life is not all about what I need. I need a new game, a new video game, a new movie, buy this. I'm bored. No. What can you do for other people? So I'm thinking of elderly. How can we teach our society to say we need to stop out and reach out to somebody else? Reaching out to somebody every day is a good thing for them. So it's just such a wonderful teaching time if we capture it and use it. Kids want to be listened to, and they want to have parents be there for them. But it's, what does our family look like right now? Is that the way you want it to look?
So good. And I will say, because we've had more time, my kids have written more notes than they've ever written probably their whole life, or made more goodies, or gone on little trips to go and deliver something to someone. We just have not always had the time to do as much of that. And I know that they are slowly beginning to feel what that is. You know, it's not this selfishness, it's this selflessness that we are so blessed when we give. But they only really experience that when we give them the opportunities to do so. So there's a lot that we can help control there and build them up so that their emotional state is heightened, because it's a natural sort of feeling that comes, right? Something must be exerted in the brain when we do something for someone else, whether it's endorphins release or serotonin or so it's that good feeling that we just naturally get. Probably a little dopamine too, because we get used to wanting to feel that way, and we start to understand how powerful it is to give back, and that's what feels good. Let's see, do you have any just last little encouragement or tips for families as we move into summer? Consider fall, you know, that's up in the air. We're not really sure what that all will look like. But I will just admit, as a mom at home with 4 boys, ready for the summer ahead of us with no baseball schedules, no games, no activities, no camps, no trips, all of that has been canceled. I know my family well enough to know that I need to put some sort of a daily schedule together. I'm not talking hour by hour, but we have things in place because I know that's the way we best work. But I'm just wondering if you have any encouragements or tips for families to try to not just get through this time, but really enjoy it and thrive and make the most of it.
Oh, I'm thinking about so many different families that I talk with and so many families that I've seen. You know, again, let me just reiterate, if we can change our thinking to, oh, this is horrible, to, oh my goodness, I get this time and I might never get it again. So if we can stretch our thinking to, this is a time, a gift of time, then again, I say building a little bit of structure, having a family meeting and saying, what would be a lot of fun. I mean, it's time for parents to maybe be silly, to play with their kids outside. If they're going to have a squirt gun water fight,
So good.
instead of saying, well, now you guys go out and play, I have to clean. Forget the cleaning, go outside,
Yes.
have a water fight, be silly,
Yes.
get wet, dig in the dirt, race them, set up an outdoor physical skill
Obstacle
thing.
course or
I mean, be a part of their lives, go with them on the nature walk. There's a time and place they can go. Take them outside on a hike and ask them to just sit down and listen. What are they hearing? What are they seeing? It's a gift of time. I'm not sure we'll get back. And so it changes the way we think. And when you're walking and talking, you know, one of the things that I saw in distance learning that I'm not sure, it's such, we could write a book if we figured this out. How do we teach our children to want to learn because they want to learn?
they're
Not what
interested.
right? Not what you have to do, not what the worksheets say you need to do. What do you want to learn? How could we get our kids invested over the summer to learning about nature, to learning more about animals, to getting them excited about what they want to learn about? That's
I
another
love that.
option, you know.
And oh my goodness, I love all of that feedback because I also know that when I include my kids on whatever schedule I'm planning, it goes so much better because they're invested, because it's what they want to do, it's what they value. And I love that idea of, I'm going to add that as we start looking into our next weeks, is what's something that you are interested in, that you want to learn about? I love that. Or what is something you want to learn to do? I think those are great tips. And the other thing I heard you say, which for me and for many of us, I think is almost this daily reminder, is just a mindset, a perspective of how are we going to look at this day? And the longer the days go on, sometimes it's harder to keep that mindset and that perspective, which is why I think it's so important for us adults to have people like you, Cindy, and other friends who on our down days, we can reach out and be lifted up. And it's like, okay, renewing that perspective, let's keep going. So I'm a firm believer that we're all in this together and we all need one another because we're all going to have different kinds of days. But I love that reminder to just keep that perspective of that this is precious time that we perhaps won't ever get back. And, you know, I often say to my husband, I just want time to pause because the ages of my kids are so fun right now. And I mean, my son, my oldest is a sophomore, and I just can hardly even say that out loud. We only have a few years left. And so just having this gift of visiting with you today is such a good reminder to me to go out and play and be with them, because those are the memories they're going to have for a lifetime. Those are the things they'll remember, not sitting and watching a movie or whatever else it may be. It's that connection. Oh, well, thank you so much, Cindy, for taking the time to visit and to share your thoughts and your feedback and your heart. I know families will be so encouraged by you, and I know those students are missing your sweet, positive demeanor. And I just want to thank you for your heart, for all that you do for kids and education everywhere.
Well, I'm the lucky one, and to whom much is given, much is required. And I have been given, and I want to leave a legacy of teaching kids their gift. Every one of you kids are a gift. And I think we have so much power in these kids, and I want to give them empowerment as much as I can to move in the right direction and change our world.
Oh, that is
Thanks
beautiful.
for having me.
We are going to leave it at that, friends. Moms, dads, go and help your kids excavate their gifts and find out what they were made to do in this world, and make it an adventure. We will be praying for all of you. Cindy, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, listeners. And by all means, if you've enjoyed this interview, share it with those that you know could be encouraged. Take care, breathe peace, and we'll see you soon.